In this video, we are going to talk about sections 3.2 and 3.3 in your textbook, and those sections deal with adding and subtracting rational numbers. Please keep in mind a rational number is a number that can be written as a fraction. So we're dealing with fractions, decimals, integers, and all of those types of numbers can be either positive or negative. One skill that's really important in 7th grade is to be able to actually model out these types of problems on a number line. So we're going to start there today. And I have a problem here that tells me that Kyle pours out 3/4 liter of liquid from a beaker. Then he pours out another 1/2 liter of liquid. What is the overall change in the amount of liquid in the beaker? So I'm going to start off and I'm going to write myself a problem. So knowing that he's pouring out 3/4 liter, I'm going to make that a -3/4. And then I know he's pouring out another 1/2 liter. So again, since he's pouring it out, it's going to be another negative value, which is -1/2. And what I want to do to find the total amount of liquid that Kyle has poured out, I want to add these two values together. So I just made myself an equation, -3/4 plus -1/2. And we know that whenever we're dealing with fractions and we're adding, of course we need a common denominator. So since I'm dealing with 2 and 4, I'm going to use 4 as my common denominator. So I will keep 3/4 as 3/4, and I'm going to change -1/2 into a -2/4. And I know at this point a lot of you guys already have the answer in your head, and that's fantastic. But what we're going to do next is actually show this out on a number line. So here's the trick with number lines. I have to figure out both an interval for my number line and also how long my number line has to be. In order to figure out my interval, I'm actually going to use the denominator of my fraction. So since both of my denominators are 4s now, I'm going to break my number line into fourths. If I solve this in my head, I know that Kyle's going to pour out a little more than a liter. So I'm going to start over here with 0. And in order to count by fourths, I have to keep in mind that 4/4 makes a whole. So I have a line here for 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4 becomes -1. And then we have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and another 4/4 makes another whole, which will get us down to -2. And knowing that he only poured out a little more than a liter, I have plenty of space on my number line now. So what I will do, I'm going to change colors here. I'm going to start off with the first piece of the problem where it tells me that he pours out 3/4 liter. And this is 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. And notice that I'm in the negative values because he's pouring out the liquid. And he's going to pour out another 2/4. So jumping to this line would get me 1/4. Jumping to this line would get me 2/4. And I'm going to draw an arrow to the left to show that I moved in the left direction because I'm adding a negative value. And now I just want to look at where my line dropped off, and that is right here. The value of that line is -1 1/4. So that tells me that altogether Kyle poured out -1 1/4 liters of liquid. And we're going to label this liters. It's also possible to do these problems without actually doing a number line, and we're going to keep in mind our rules from adding and subtracting integers. So if I take a look at problem number 1 here, I know that if I add two negative numbers, I add them together and I keep their sign in the solution. So I'm going to start off adding together -4 and -4.75. Keep in mind -4 is the same as -4.0, so this would combine to make -8.75. And now I'm going to combine that with that 3.25 that's still up in my problem. So this has become 3.25 plus a negative 8.75. So in this case, I'm now adding with different signs. And I know that when I add with different signs, I find the difference. And I keep the sign of the number that has the larger absolute value. So if I wanted to find the difference between 8.75 and 3.25, keep in mind when I do my subtraction, the number with the higher absolute value goes on the top, and the number with the smaller absolute value goes on the bottom so that I can do my subtraction. So 8.75 minus 3.25, and that's going to leave me with 5.5 or 5.50. So I find out I have 5.5, and now I just have to think about what my sign is going to be. Looking back at this problem here, negative 8.75 has the larger absolute value, and the sign of that number is negative, so my solution will be negative. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know tomorrow.